Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Simon. I am the stupid astronomer because I do the stupid things so you don't have to. And speaking of not so stupid, I have Uncle Scott here from Meade Instruments. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, thank you for coming down.
I've been dying to come to this place for I don't know how long since I've been into astronomy. So we're actually going to be looking at a product launch and it's right here. That's it.
That's it. We're very happy to be presenting the new Meade LX85. The LX85 is a German equatorial mount that will come with a variety of optical tubes, but this is putting into use our years and years of experience in designing and producing astronomical telescopes for the amateur astronomer. And this product is really going to be of great use to a lot of people looking for something to put a nice tube on.
Right. So let's look at some of the design aspects of this. I mean, given that you had the LX850, which was a huge success, I can see a lot of things have actually ported over from the 850 onto the 85, other than the name.
Mm-hmm, right,
so
right.
Let's go through some of the key features that I know some of you guys out there are probably dying to hear about. So let's look at the weight capacity. That's the most important thing for a lot of people, is how much weight can this thing handle. So Scott, tell me, what can this thing do? I mean, I can see we've got an 8-inch on here, but I'm assuming it can do more than that, right?
Oh, absolutely. The LX85 is going to be capable of carrying a 33-pound payload, and that's not including the counterweights. So we will be also making available additional counterweights if somebody's got a little heavier tube than what we are supplying with the product, that they'd be able to add an extra counterweight.
Beautiful. Just to give us a quick demonstration of the capabilities, we've already pre-balanced this scope, and you can see it's actually moving incredibly smoothly. A lot of the times where I've seen people who don't quite balance these scopes right, you'll see that kind of flop to one side to the other. One of the big things that Meade has done this time round is they're not using a thick, heavy grease inside of the gearing, so this actually moves incredibly freely, especially on the RA. Deck in general has always been a little bit stiff, but that's always a good thing. You don't actually want movement in deck, especially when you're doing astrophotography, which ironically brings me to my next transition. Isn't that good? Astrophotography, can this thing actually do it?
Absolutely. That's really what we're designing the LX85 mount to be for, is to provide that mid-level mount astrophotography platform.
So a lot of people always ask me about this. The LX85 actually has a guide port, and what we mean by that is you can easily attach a guide scope and a guide camera to your optical tube using the RJ11, RJ12, whichever one you prefer, they're all the same to be honest, that connects into the guide port, and you can actually start auto-guiding. What auto-guiding is actually doing is watching that star, and it will make tiny adjustments to the mount to make sure that star stays where it is. So what kind of performances have you guys tested with this so far?
Well, so far we've been doing a good amount of night sky testing with it, using a variety of cameras, including our LPIG and other cameras that we're testing with, and getting very good results with it.
Right. So again, you guys will be able to check out more of this as more information comes out. We've already got a couple of people that are in different places playing around with this. At some point in time, I will get to use this, and who knows, I'm able to show you some amazing groundbreaking stuff, and then again, I could just show you the mount working, which is probably way more important. Speaking of working, a lot of people like to be out on the field. And that's probably one of the biggest key features that I've noticed about this mount is, first of all, its weight, its physical weight. And
well, the heaviest component is the mount head, and that weighs about 19 pounds. Tripod is 12.4 pounds. So the whole assembled unit, even with the OTAs, is somewhere around 34 to 42 pounds, depending upon the optical tube.
Right. So if you guys want an example of what that means, let me just make sure the clutches are locked again. We can actually see, I can actually pick up this. I'm struggling a little bit, but it's not that heavy. I mean, you can't do that with the mount that I've got in my backyard, I'll tell you that much. I may be able to pick up the counterweight, but that's about it. So, how do I power this though? That's the other thing.
The LX85 mount has a 12-volt DC jack. We recommend, being able to have a power supply that's up to 5 amps.
Right.
Telescope probably won't drive much more than 1 amp, but you want to have a little bit more in case there's a a higher spot or something where it might draw a little more current. But this will allow you to use either a cigarette lighter adapter or an AC supply, whatever you have in the field. You can be using lithium batteries, whatever that you need out in the field.
Right, and of course you have your own power pack that you guys also sell, which again, this is perfectly compatible with it.
Yeah, our universal AC adapter, that'll power any of our telescopes.
Exactly. So for those of you who want to be able to plug in, say, like your laptop and everything else, you can use your existing battery that you would do. I mean, most people nowadays use, I don't know, car batteries and things like that, but you can get other products out there that are just equally as good. It is still a 5.5, 2.5 millimeter jack.
Right.
So again, everything you probably have for all your other mounts and all your other accessories would be compatible. If you don't have a 2.5, you can get a 2.1 to 2.5 adapter quite easily. One of the biggest design differences I've noticed on this is the counterweight. You guys have adopted for a square design, which is interesting because I've had many of fun times with counterweights, and I just happen to have one here, the circular one.
Yeah.
So, other than telling you a story about how one almost broke my foot, why did you guys opt to change to a circular one?
Obviously one thing about a round counterweight is that when you set it down, and whether you're out on a field that's level or not, they can roll, run away from you. Nice thing about the square one is you can set it down on its side and it's not going anywhere.
That's right. So no more counterweights escaping when you open the trunk of your car, if you're one of those people that like to just throw it in the back of the car, because I'm one of those guilty people, unfortunately. But yes, the square counterweight has been the most intriguing part of this, and I actually agree with it. I love the idea that I can put this thing down and not turn around and find it halfway down the street trying to kill somebody. So that's a real big bonus, putting this counterweight down. And of course, the mount comes with at least one counterweight, correct?
Right, they all come with one counterweight. The only exception to that is with the 8-inch Newtonian reflector that we have will come with an extra counterweight.
Right, so there you go. I've always been into telescopes for one simple reason. When I first started, I knew where nothing was. I mean, none of you could ever imagine looking for something and going, oh, it's over there, and and it ain't over there. So what's so special about the mount now in terms of the GoTo function?
Well, the nice thing about the LX85 is that it's built up using our AudioStar computer controller. And the AudioStar comes with a 30,000 object database, as well as our feature, the astronomer inside, which gives you 4 hours of media content that plays over the speaker in the controller. So you have that, and that's something that you can turn on and off. But it is a great thing when you've got a crowd of people or friends and family that you want to be able to entertain. It tells you about the objects that you're going to, and it gives you a lot of information right in your hands.
Now, this does mean that just because it has all the objects in the database doesn't mean you don't have to have any knowledge of the sky. The alignment procedure is actually kind of important, and it does require some knowledge. So you do have to do some old-style reading. I still love books, to be totally honest, but if you don't like books, you've got your phone, everyone's got one, or you've got the internet. You could just simply look up the stars. The actual setup procedure behind all of this, the actual calibration, is actually very, very simple. Go a little bit about that with us.
So basically with all of our telescopes that use either AudioStar or AudioStar, you're going to be doing a 2-star alignment. And once you have the telescope roughly polar aligned, we do have a polar borescope that will be available for it that will help you to align on Polaris, get that rough polar alignment. Then you're going to use the 2-star alignment process in the AudioStar to go ahead and do the alignment and get the accuracy that you need to locate objects.
So the other thing that we're going to come back to, especially for people who do a lot of astro-imaging, is the balancing of the scope. So we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to show you some nice close-up images of the scope, and then when we come back, we're going to show you a quick couple of tips on using the LX85. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Okay guys, welcome back, and we're actually going to have a go at this mount in terms of setting the whole thing up. And if you guys never set up an equatorial mount, it's not difficult. It looks complicated, but it really isn't. So let's get started. First things first is obviously assemble the mount, check out the manual. Meade Instruments actually has one of the best manuals out there, so I suggest reading it. One of the important things that I always like to point out is this tiny screw here that goes onto the counterweight shaft. So, Scott, if you would like to grab a counterweight for me.
Absolutely.
Here's my lovely assistant, Uncle Scott. He's now placing that onto the counterweight shaft. And this thing that I'm holding, that I just screwed in, is called a toe saver. And again, I have had a lot of experience with this where the counterweight slips down and the toe saver actually saves your toes, hence toe saver. Go figure, right? So all I'm going to do is I'm going to put the counterweight on first. Big tip, always put the counterweight on first before you put the scope on. Reason being is it can't go anywhere. It'll always be pointing downwards. I always set it to the lowest position it can go to. If you know you have a scope that's going to be heavier, put both counterweights on there. It'll save you time. So next step, ta-da, is the scope. So we're going to set this in there, and we're going to tighten this all off. Now I'm not going to set it too tight because I'm going to make some minor adjustments now. Okay, so first of all is balancing the scope. What I like to do when I balance the scope is I loosen all the clutches ahead of time. Now, as long as this part here holds the scope, it isn't going to go, no, it's not going to slide backwards and kill you or anything else for that matter. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn the scope so it now is parallel to the ground. That's the first thing I'm going to do. And what I'm going to do is adjust this counterweight until the whole thing stops moving. Now, as I mentioned before, the grease that they're using on this particular mount is a little lighter, so the actual scope moves more freely in comparison to other scopes. So you can actually feel and get a good way to balance this. The declination, on the other hand, is a little stiffer, so you will have to play around with it, and we are pretty close. Now, I like to balance with the scope pointing up and down, and also I do actually do a meridian flip and check on this side. When you actually know that your scope is actually balanced, you should be able to turn it to any position, the 45 degree, and it will stay while the clutches are disengaged. I can then move it to this side, and again, let go, and it should not drop or fall in any specific direction. Doesn't matter where it's pointed. So that's a quick way of setting it up and getting this sucker balanced, because it's such a great little mount, and I'm tempted to take this one home with me. So if you guys don't mind, I'm just,